On October 10, 1957, reactor manager Tom Tuohy climbed to the top of the Windscale atomic complex and looked directly into the core. Inside, he discovered 11 tons of uranium fuel, glowing a bright cherry red. The core was on fire. If the blaze breached the surrounding concrete containment, a massive cloud of radioactive fallout would drift across the United Kingdom. Tuohy's team was out of safe options. Their last resort was to flood the reactor with hoses, but applying water to molten uranium strips the oxygen molecules and leaves behind highly explosive hydrogen gas. A single mistake could trigger a blast that would tear the building apart. This high-stakes crisis grew from a decade of political pressure and skipped engineering steps. The path to the fire began 11 years earlier when the United States passed the McMahon Act. This law effectively classified American nuclear research, abruptly cutting Britain off from the shared intelligence of the Manhattan Project. Terrified of losing its status as a global superpower, the British government ordered its scientists to develop an independent atomic bomb quickly and cheaply. To meet these extreme deadlines, engineers scrapped plans for complex water-cooled reactors. Instead, they built Windscale, a primitive air-cooled facility moderated by graphite and designed solely to pump out plutonium. By prioritizing geopolitical timelines over safety protocols, the government hardwired a ticking time bomb into the Cumbrian countryside. Hidden inside was a dangerous flaw. Neutrons bombarding the graphite lattice caused structural dislocations, building up massive potential energy, known as Wigner energy. To manage this, operators performed annealing, heating the core to let the lattice relax and safely dissipate the trapped energy. This maintenance cycle was pushed to the breaking point when the government demanded tritium for a new hydrogen bomb. Engineers were forced to alter the fuel cartridges and run the reactor significantly hotter than it was ever designed to handle. This increased heat skewed the planned temperature distribution in the core, creating intense, invisible hotspots that the facility's existing sensors could not detect. Operating on the edge of unproven physics to meet a political deadline left the engineers with no remaining margin for error. The ignition sequence began during a routine Wigner energy release. When cooling readings appeared anomalous, confused operators assumed the cycle had stalled and triggered a second, aggressive burst of heat. This second burst was applied too rapidly. It ignited one of the unmonitored hotspots, and the uranium cartridges inside began to burn. Facing a total meltdown, Tom Tuohy made his move. He shut off the cooling fans to starve the fire of oxygen and pumped water directly onto the molten fuel, fully expecting a hydrogen explosion. The explosion never came, and a radioactive catastrophe was blunted by a miracle. A set of expensive chimney filters, which engineers had previously mocked as Cockcroft's folly, successfully captured 95% of the radioactive dust. A heavily criticized last-minute add-on and a stroke of luck stopped the reactor's primary failure from becoming a national catastrophe. In the days following the fire, Prime Minister Harold Macmillan heavily censored the accident report. He deliberately suppressed information regarding the release of highly dangerous polonium-210. Macmillan's aim was to prevent public panic and to protect the recently repaired nuclear sharing alliance with the United States. Windscale Pile 1 was permanently disabled, but the dilemma remained. The military still needed plutonium, and the public now expected nuclear-generated electricity for the national grid. The government's answer was the Magnox reactor, a new generation of dual-purpose machines adapted directly from the Windscale design. Instead of moving away from a flawed design philosophy, the British government doubled down on the dual-purpose compromise for their civilian power grid. Engineers attempted to prevent another fire by swapping air cooling for pressurized carbon dioxide and using the titular magnesium non-oxidizing alloy for fuel cladding. This design inherited a massive economic flaw. Because it still relied on natural uranium, it had to be built at an enormous scale. This chart shows the low thermal efficiency of these plants, topping out at just 34%, contrasted against the higher standard of modern pressurized water reactors. Ultimately, Magnox produced electricity at nearly 50% higher cost than traditional coal plants. The first era of British nuclear power was not a triumph of energy independence, but a Cold War compromise. It resulted in the nation's worst nuclear disaster and demonstrated the inherent danger in building a machine meant to power a city and arm a military simultaneously.